Okay, let's get started today. So, what are we doing here, Andrew?
What are we doing here? I don't even remember. Today is October, and we're going into holiday season. And the theme I was thinking about for this month was stuff stuffed inside of stuff. So we're taking a couple recipes from the cookbook, and we're doing a remix on a couple of the recipes. We're changing up sort of the process for a couple of the recipes, and then we're jamming it inside of something and throwing it into the oven. So what we're doing today, we are doing the Chef Kathy's wonderful cauliflower mac and cheese stuffed inside of bell peppers, like a stuffed pepper. And then we're doing the chicken tikka masala stuffed inside one of my favorite winter squashes, which is the Delicata squash. So those are the two things. Pretty easy the way we're doing it. And it's like I'll show you how to tips and tricks on how to make it an easy go for dinner prep. And yeah, welcome to October. It's nice to see you. It's been, I'm sorry I wasn't here last month.
For those of you that don't know that are tuning in, this is Andrew Johnson talking, and he is the chef extraordinaire for the Masala project. And my name is Alexia Hall. I'm the dietitian, and we tag team. We talk a lot about nutrition. Andy talks about cooking, and we are joined today with Bree. Bree is one of our interns from OSHA. She's going to be with us this entire year, and she's leading the nutrition talk for our second recipe today. So woohoo! Thank you, Bree. And so one of the reasons that we do food that goes with the seasons is that food is more nutritionally dense when you get it fresh from the ground, you pick it out and you eat it soon after it's plucked. And so eating with the seasons is one reason it's more nutritionally dense to eat it. Another reason is that it costs less to ship it, and there's less impact to the environment when you eat the food that is grown closer to you. So it's just a win-win-win-win situation. And as we head into this season of fall, we think about foods that are going to give us more of a nutritional punch that's going to help us through cold and flu season. We're going back to school. We're heading into colder degrees, more wind, more of a situation where somebody could get a cold. So a lot of these gorgeous dark colors come packed with special stuff to fight and support with the immune system. And so as we hit each one of these, we're going to talk about not only what special things they have in them that help your immune system just get bolstered and do a great job of fighting off colds and flus, but we're going to talk a lot about how you get your kids to eat these things. Because if your kids are anything like my kids were when they were growing up, they probably wouldn't just willingly bite right into a stuffed pepper, but we're going to talk a lot about how you get a kid to do that. So Andrew, tell us about our first recipe.
So the first recipe, let me switch views so you can see my ugly face. There we go. The first recipe is the slow cooker chicken tikka masala that I crafted for the cookbook. And we're going to do it not slow cooker. We're going to do it Instapot version. It's like a no-brainer. Tikka masala is an Indian dish. There's like a lot of flavors in there. It's packed full of things. Traditionally, it has a lot of dairy in it. This one is dairy-free. And the way I've done it with the Instapot, it's like throw everything in like real quick, 10 minutes, and bang, you have the chicken. And then I've roasted at the same time that it took to do the chicken. I've roasted some squash, and then we're going to finish it in the oven with a little some like baked paneer, which is an Indian cheese, and then we're going to top it with some cilantro. So I want to switch the view up here so you can see kind of like what we're working with. So the chicken tikka masala, the recipe from the cookbook, it is 2 pounds of chicken thighs in a 1-inch cube. I'm a big fan of chicken thighs. They're very resilient. You can cook the royal crap out of them and they will still stay juicy. And so this one's really good. So it's 2 pounds of chicken thighs. It's 1 cup of onion chopped. It is a can of pureed tomatoes. In this case, I use one of my favorite is Muir Glen organic crushed tomatoes. So I got a can of that going in there, and then 14-ounce can, a standard can, and then I did a 14-ounce can of coconut milk. I did 2 tablespoons of coconut oil, and then for the spices, the camera is super delayed. You have salt, you have pepper, you have cumin, you have turmeric, you have coriander, you have a little bit of cinnamon, and you have cardamom, which I grated with a microplane. If you don't want to do all these separately, I basically made a gram masala from scratch in the cookbook, but you could just get a jar of gram masala, and that would be just a one hit on this as well. But these are the spices for that, so that goes in there. And then you do 3 cloves of garlic and about a tablespoon, a big chunk of ginger, both finely chopped, and that goes right into the Instapot. And then literally like a lot of the recipes you find for this online, it calls for you to put it on the saute mode and do the saute mode on the Instapot. You have to do none of that to make this super delicious. Okay, so here we go.
So one of the cool things about chicken thighs versus doing chicken breasts is that chicken thighs have so much more nutrition in them compared to chicken breasts. They have more zinc, they have more B vitamins, they've got all kinds of really great things that support the immune system.
All right. So this is the Instapot. If you want to email me about Instapot things, Instapot is one of my favorite items. Literally, all I did was threw in all the ingredients. You can mix it up. You could do it the day before. You could do it in the morning if you have a time before your meal at dinner. You could do it the day before, and it would be even better because it'd have time to marry. Throw a piece of plastic over the top or a little bit of foil, and then pull it out, put it in your Instapot, 10 minutes on high pressure, on a meat setting, basically a high pressure. And that's really it.
The slow cooker is the recipe directions that's included on page 73 in your cookbook. And Andrew took that today and did the Instapot instead. And one of the ways that we can get kids to eat this, I don't know if your kids are like my kids, but in the very beginning, they were not gutsy or adventurous at all. And they didn't want to have anything with sauce or anything touching each other. So if you look at Andrew's spoon there, you can pick out pieces of chicken and not include the sauce just to get a kid used to the idea. And so sometimes if they turn up their nose and they're like, I'm not even going there at all, ask them if they'll smell it, because oftentimes if a kid smells something and they see that it's not scary or really yucky smelling or things like that, the beautiful smells that are coming from those Indian spices might be just enough to entice a kid to taste. And so never force a kid to put something in their mouth, but if they're like, no, I don't think I'd like that, just say, okay, hey, you want to try to smell it? And that can sometimes get a kid close enough to where they'll try it.
So this is a delicata squash. It is by far one of my favorites, and the reason it's one of my favorites is you can eat the skin. It's not like an acorn squash or a butternut squash where you have to peel it. So it's very, very versatile. It's very, very easy to use. You know, all squashes have kind of similar flavor profiles. So when it comes down to it, you're getting a winter squash, which we're going into winter, and literally all you're doing is taking the seeds out of this guy, like so. You're going to take a sheet pan. You're going to maybe spray, I have like a little bit of oil, and flip it upside down on a sheet pan. Bake that for 25 minutes first. That's all you have to do to those guys. So while you're cooking this, because this is 10 minutes in the Instapot, but it takes, once you hit go, it takes time for the pressure to build up. and then it's about 22 minutes total. So you put this in the oven first, you get this guy going, and then when you pull the squash out of the oven, you're ready to go like so. They look like this. This is just a different variety. It's a little bit with the green on there, but that's all you're doing. You're just doing like that, right? You take some of this chicken, load that guy in there, and this is a lot of sauce in there because of the chicken. All the moisture from the chicken is leaching out, and you have a can of tomatoes, you have a can of coconut milk. So like Lexi was saying, you can kind of get the sauce off of it a little bit, a little slotted spoon.
It's delicious and it's amazing. And traditionally, it's probably served over rice. And serving it with the squash lessens the carbohydrate impact, but also gives you a punch of vitamin A, because that squash is filled with vitamin A, and vitamins A, C, E, and the minerals selenium and zinc are just superstars for the immune system. So that is definitely going to keep colds away there. And I was so excited when Andrew told me about this paneer, because I've never heard of it before. And I'm so interested to see what it looks like and hear about how it tastes.
So paneer is an Indian cheese. It's not a renneted cheese. Like rennet is the part that coagulates the milk from the animal, from the stomach lining of an animal. It is an acid-based cheese. So I guess it's it's a fresh cheese, and it's acid fermented. So the closest thing it's going to be is to like a ricotta, really. So it's kind of dense. It doesn't melt, which makes it good to grill, or you can bake it, and then it kind of like chars up, but it adds a nice flavor, and it's not very salty, but it has a lot of acid in it because it's an acid fermented cheese. So I'm just going to do some nice cubes of this paneer.
Any of these cheese choices is on top of a dish like this, is one going to help kids think of it as like a bridge? Because if you think about kids and pizza or kids and cheeseburgers, cheese is like something most kids are willing to go for all the time. And you can use that cheese as a bridge of something familiar to help them take something in that's unfamiliar. So you're like, you like melted cheese on like a quesadilla or a pizza, and then saying, we're just going to melt some cheese on top of some chicken and try it on top of this squash. And again, you can separate each of these three things once it's out of the oven, and then encourage the kid to try it if they're really hesitant to taste combined foods. That's another way to get kids to try things.
So I got the paneer on there. It's easy as that. Now I'm just going to fire it into the oven for 10 minutes to kind of get a little not melt it, but like get a little char on that paneer.
Andrew, if you can't find the paneer, what other cheeses would work and kind of do the same thing?
Like a halloumi would be really good as well.
Okay.
Like a halloumi is a cheese that they traditionally grill or bake. It's not a acid cheese, but it will have the same sort of properties when you apply heat to it in the oven.
So a soft cheese like a goat cheese or a feta, not so much really.
Those would all do really delicious, but if you're trying to replicate what the paneer is going to be from like a textural and like structural standpoint, like halloumi would be really good. But cheese on this would be really, I mean, any kind of cheese which you can entice your kids to eat would be really good to do.
Awesome. Okay. And we welcome questions from our audience. So if anybody would like to put anything in the Q&A and ask any questions about brands or about types of things, or hey, would this work or that work, or question about anything, we welcome it.
All right, so the second recipe we're going to move on to is the Kathy's cauliflower squash, cauliflower mac and cheese. And I haven't made this one a lot, but I'm really, really happy with the way this one turned out. And it's a pretty good thing. I can talk to you a little bit about some best practices with it as well. And this one is on page
117.
117 and 116. And so I have the cheese sauce here. I made that early because, you know, TV magic. So you got this beautiful cheese sauce. And traditionally, cheese sauces are thickened, like a bechamel is thickened with a roux. So it's equal parts butter and flour. But to keep carbs low, this sauce is delicious and there is no flour, there's no starches added to it. So this is what's in this pot here is a 1 onion cubed, 1 garlic, clove minced, sauteed, or you kind of steeped it out with some cream and it calls for heavy cream and half. And what I used, I'm a big fan. I know it doesn't necessarily work for all of our cohort here with Max Love, but I'm really a big fan of Raw Farms raw dairy, and I'm very happy with it because it I have issues with dairy, and the raw dairy, if it's good for your if your immune system can handle it and you're not compromised super, this is really nice stuff. This is out of California. It's raw dairy that they sell in stores. They sell at Sprouts, and I used this pint of half raw cream with just a little bit more milk, and then I added that to the onions and the garlic, and I sauteed that real low for about 25 minutes. That kind of reduced the milk, and then I added, this is 1 pound of raw cheese, so I added 1 pound of cheese shredded to this, and it's got this beautiful, like, gorgeous texture. And that's basically the base for the mac and cheese. And then,
so going back to the raw, fresh, pasteurized question, just real quick, for anybody, like Andrew said, that's immune compromised because they're actively going through treatment, we advocate that they do the pasteurized cheese. And that's just to ensure that no microbial agents get through that are going to cause a problem with treatment. For those that advocate for raw, that have a really solid immune system that's not affected by treatment, they are saying that there's more nutrient density because of the raw, that the pasteurization process doesn't destroy some of the active enzymes and the nutrients that are contained within the raw. And so that I just wanted to give a little bit more detail to Andrew's discussion on the raw versus pasteurized, but I love the taste of that particular raw cheese. When you first were telling me about it, I didn't know that that's what you were speaking about, but it does have a great taste to it. But you just want to be aware of that if you're going through active treatment.
well, and I've actually spent time with Mark McAfee, the owner and CEO of Raw Farms, and he has a huge presentation that he presents for these seminars, and he has all this data about the pathogens. They're so more reduced in raw milk in his farm, because basically when it comes down to pasteurization, so you're talking about traditional farms, they don't treat their cows well, they don't treat their farms well, and so they kind of like treat them like badly because they know they're going to annihilate everything good and bad. And so there's a chance for bad pathogens in pasteurized milk. But the raw farms, they treat their cows and their facilities so well that the possibility of bad foodborne pathogens is really, it's so much more minimalized versus traditional farming. And I know we're going to get closer to that in years to come. But really, like, I'm a big proponent of it, and I'm not trying to sway what the doctors are telling you and what Lexi is telling you right now, but it's something to consider, and I find it super fantastic. So I'm going to show you the cauliflower I got. It's not a white cauliflower. I went with a yellow cauliflower, or what they call a cheddar. So it kind of already looks like mac and cheese because I have a white cheese sauce. So I got that cauliflower. You're going to go into this. This was 2 heads of cauliflower. So it's 2 heads of cauliflower. Small heads are about 8 cups. So it's about twice the recipe, but if you look at the notes for the recipe, the recipe says the cheese sauce is double. So I got the cauliflower there. This was 25 minutes, small florets in the oven, no oil, just a touch of salt, and you kind of want to dry it out. So when you add the cheese, it kind of all congeals. I'm just going to go that guy right in there.
And Bree has some nutrition points she'd like to bring up on this too.
All
yeah,
right.
So I know that you use 2 smaller heads of cauliflower in this one, but 1 medium-sized head of cauliflower is around 11 grams of protein and 12 grams of dietary fiber. And cauliflower is also rich in nutrients such as vitamin C, vitamin K, and vitamin B6.
That's awesome. Thank you, Bree.
Yeah, our cookbook, we are big fans of cauliflower. If you look at the cookbook, cauliflower is woven through in so many different ways. All right, so that's basically the mac and cheese. And then we're going to go.
So as made, this recipe gives you 14 net carbohydrate grams per serving, and the serving is about 3/4 cup. And Andrew is going to make this one today in this bell pepper. And the reason for the bell pepper is 1, that it's in season, 2, that it's delicious, but 3, that it is packed with vitamin A and C. In fact, it is, you think of vitamin C, you think of fruit generally, but bell pepper has the most vitamin C of any vegetable. And as we all know, vitamin C is fabulous for colds and flus, to support the immune system with that. And so in terms of getting kids to eat bell peppers, automatically when a kid looks at a pepper, they're thinking hot and they're thinking spicy. And when you get the green bell peppers, Andrew, would you say that they're a little bit more on the bitter side, or how do you compare the taste of a red bell to a green bell?
I have very strong feelings about peppers.
Okay, let's hear it.
Specifically, I absolutely despise green bell peppers.
Me too.
There's something about them that it just sings of like an old pizza, that they cared nothing about, and they didn't care to buy better peppers, and they're just not they definitely have a bitterness. There's a very unique flavor about them. Yeah. I love red, I love yellow, I love purple, I love orange, but the green, not so much. So that's my take on bell peppers.
I've never really tested this out, but they said like the green has the most bitter or the longest lasting aftertaste, but the red is very sweet and the orange and the yellow are the sweetest. Do you think that holds true for you?
I think all of them outside of green taste relatively the same, but the yellow and the orange are definitely super sweet.
And so how do you think it changes? So when I have a kid introduced to a bell pepper for the very first time, I usually introduce it raw, because I'm saying, look how sweet this is. And let me show you a dip that goes along with it that, a kid might be interested in. So like a ranch dip or something along that side. Use this dip as a bridge to help you get this into your mouth and realize that it's not going to hurt and it's not too spicy. And so the raw does, it lends that crunch, it lends that sweet. When it's baked, do you think that it's even sweeter?
I just think texturally peppers they have like a little bit of a crunch.
Okay.
And they definitely become sweeter because you're breaking down the cell structure of the pepper.
Okay.
And it's just sort of going into like a softer texture, and it's more supple. And so I think texturally, if kids have issues with texture, a cooked bell pepper, the way we're doing them now, it's going to be way more beneficial, because it's going to become soft and like really pliable and kind of really nice to eat, versus something that's crunchy. If they have issues texturally, that will be the thing for them.
When I have a kid that really, really, really doesn't want to taste anything but the box of Kraft mac and cheese, I might start with like a 25-75 rule, where I'll do, the traditional noodle that comes with a box of mac and cheese, so the little elbow macaroni, and I'll cut the cauliflower in a really tiny shape that's very similar, and then I'll boil the noodle together with the cauliflower so that it seems very interchangeable, and then add the cheese sauce, and so that everything is uniform, and a kid gets a scoop of both. So they might get 75% noodle, 25% cauliflower. And then as their taste buds start to get acclimated to that, I'll start to switch them over to like a 50-50 and then a 25-75. And then by that point, they're getting more adventurous. And then what's really cool is to give a kid the language and the vocabulary around food. And that involves lots of taste adventuresome. And so, like Andrew was talking about, you go from the raw, you go to the cooked, and you ask a kid, what do you think? Join with me in exploring what this tastes like. How does it feel in your mouth? Is it crunchy? Is it soft? Is it sweet? Is it salty? Is it bitter? What do you think? You know what I mean? And trying to give kids that language around food is going to get them interested in the fun of food. Because when you started thinking about being a chef, Andrew, how old were you? Do you remember?
14.
14. And so what kind of led you down the path that made you want to be a chef? Did somebody illustrate for you their love of food, or?
I worked for a gentleman who was a saucier. So he made sauces for a high-end Italian restaurant, and just the interplay between how all the sauces were built and how it was like assembled was like so amazingly fascinating to me that's what led me to do what I'm doing.
So piquing kids' interests about the wonder of these things is something that definitely allows a kid a little bit more time to experiment in it and get more interested in it. So if you go to a class with Andrew, you see his excitement about the food, or if you go to the farmer's market and you hear a farmer talk about his vegetables, or you go to a farm like Tanaka Farm near us and hear Glenn Tanaka talk about his strawberries, that passion is contagious. And so that's the kind of the things that we want our kids in this class to experience, is that learn that vocabulary around food, get a chance to explore, and be allowed to say, I don't like it if they don't like it, or I'm not ready to taste it yet. But there's so many steps to the acceptance of food that we want to give you that inspiration to help get you down that road.
Yeah, I'm operating as the nourishment director for a private elementary and preschool and grade school in Laguna Beach. And I do a lot of cooking programming for the kids, and getting them involved in the process, like harvesting and creating, menu ideas, and then cooking. When kids are involved in the cooking process, they're way more engaged in what they're eating. They want to eat it. They want to try it. Even if they've never had it before, if they're part of it, like you can take them to the grocery store and you're like, hey, look at this giant squash, or look at this giant squash. And like, they're like, hey, those are great. Let's try that. And then you like look up recipes and like you kind of work with them to figure out something they want to do. They are completely enamored by the product that's finished, and when they're eating, they're trying it, they're tasting it, they're completely engaged in it. So there's something to getting them involved in the process that's going to get them tasting more, getting them more involved, getting them more vegetables basically in their body. It's really what we're down to, right?
Yeah, totally. Like dipping the back of a spoon in your cheese sauce and then having a kid taste it and just asking for their engagement in terms of, do you think this has enough cheese? Should we put some more in? Do you think it has enough salt? Do you think we should put some more in? Or do you think there's enough cheese sauce on this set of cauliflower, or should we put more in? Just those questions and asking them for their opinion on that gets that ball rolling and gives them to take ownership out of the foods they're eating as well. How's it looking in there?
We've got some food. All right, I'm gonna pop these peppers in the oven.
Okay.
Magic.
And so in the cookbook itself, we always try to give fierce foods facts, telling you why a recipe is good for your nutrition, but we also try to give you culinary tips. And so at the bottom of this one, it says that it's important to let the dish rest for 10 minutes before serving, that digging in too quickly makes it very liquidy. But the other part of that is that if your kid is totally against cauliflower, and you tried to work in that 25% rule, there are high protein pastas out there as well that are made with different ingredients that will, cut down on some of that carbohydrate, and you can start to work in those high protein pastas in place of some of the, just basic refined white flour pastas as well. So there's different tips and tricks to get you going down that road. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing road.
Oh man, these things. I wish you could have smell-o-vision because these things are crazy.
Andrew, did you put anything across the top of them? Does that have a crust on there?
Yes, it has a little oh, I'm sorry, I didn't show you that. It has panko on the top.
Awesome. And there is almond flour panko out there for our kids that are on a ketogenic diet that have to be very particular about their carb count. That's gorgeous.
You could also do hemp hearts, and flax would be really good.
Yeah. And Parmesan cheese mixed with any of those hemp hearts or flax would be yummy too, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so I'm just going to hit it with these with a little bit of green onion, a little scallion.
Beautiful.
And that's what my wife and I are eating for dinner.
It's gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Yum. So when you bite through there, Andrew, do you does the baking process on that was 400 for 25 minutes or until bubbling or crisp. So if you wanted more crunch from that cauliflower or more crunch from that bell pepper, would you half that time, or what do you think?
For more crunch from the cauliflower?
Yeah.
I would cut the baking time initially on the cauliflower
Okay.
to like 20 minutes, 15 minutes.
Okay.
But I'm pretty happy. This was al dente with this go. And then I'm going to cut into this so you could see it.
So pretty.
Like the tips at the bottom are true. Like it's sort of leaking a little bit right here. It's kind of oozing. So I just pulled this one from the oven. So it needs a little bit of time to set up.
Okay.
A few more minutes. So that's just proving the pro tips that Kathy had embedded in the recipe. But I mean, it is fantastic. So that's
Beautiful.
Right?
Absolutely beautiful.
Okay.
Woohoo.
All right. And now for the paneer.
So I think that Parmesan cheese over the top, that's gorgeous.
Yeah, and these guys are just like perfectly acidic little balls of flavor power. We're going to go there.
And the fact that you can eat that skin on the delicata, for almost all root vegetables, the most nutrient density that you're going to find is right up there against the skin. But with so many of our squashes, we cut the skin off. So the fact that you can eat this with the skin on and get 100% of the nutrient value out of that is just amazing. And I cannot wait to try this new paneer because I've never even seen it. I'm sure I've eaten it because I've eaten it at Indian restaurants before, but I have never known that I was eating it.
All right, so that's this guy, to do a traditional Indian finish. We're just going to do, I got some clean cilantro. Just going to do a rough cut on some cilantro.
This is another kid-friendly tip, is that herbs are so much fun. They pack nutrient density in them. They pack antioxidants, polyphenols. They change the look of the whole dish. And this is definitely a prep thing that 2-year-olds can do. They can tear the leaves off the herbs as young as 2 to help you cook in the kitchen and make things pretty. Looks gorgeous, Andrew. Perfect. All right. Thank you so
Another
much,
thing-
Andrew.
Oh yeah, another thing that you can do with the paneer, if you can't find one in your local grocery store, you can actually make it yourself, and it's relatively simple. You only need a few ingredients. But I know personally some of my friends' parents, they make it at home for dishes that they make.
Oh, wow. What are the main ingredients?
I'm pretty sure it's lemon juice, you need low-fat milk, and maybe whey.
Okay.
And then
Yeah, it's really just milk and acid that you need in order to do
yeah,
it, because it's an acid fermented cheese, like a ricotta.
So cool. So cool. Thank you for sharing that, Bree. That's awesome. Very cool.
pretty sure we might have made it in one of my classes at OSHA actually.
Okay. Fun. Is this one of those cheeses? So, Andrew, are you saying it doesn't have to be fermented, that once you make it, it's ready to go, or does you have to let it sit out for a day or whatever?
It's an acid. It's all cheeses are fermented, but it's a fresh cheese. It's
Okay.
not aged like a cheddar or a Parmesan. So it doesn't use rennet, which is the stomach lining of the abomasum, which is the fourth stomach of a ruminoid animal. It uses an acid for the fermentation. So it's a fresh cheese like a ricotta, but it's then dried a little bit more, and then it doesn't melt. It just kind of keeps its shape, but it's super delicious.
It looks delicious. Super delicious. All right, guys. Well, if no questions for you, that is our stuffed presentation for today. This will be recorded online in a video. You'll be able to catch it off of Max Love Connect. Andrew's got his awesome jersey on there. He wants to tell you his story about this jersey. He's been waiting a year.
I bought this jersey to wear during Farm to Table Dinner 2022. This is the LA Galaxy Cancer Month jersey that they support cancer, childhood cancer. And I finally was able to get it 14 months later.
Oh, jeez. Well, we're so glad you got it because it looks awesome and it
so
matches
great.
your gold apron perfectly. All right, our next event is Friendsgiving. It's Sunday, November 19th. And Andrew and I are going to do everything we can to get our Friendsgiving back in person. So look for news about it. And we hope to make that happen. If not, we will see you back online on November 19th. And have a great dinner, everyone. Thank you for joining us. If there's no questions, we will let you go.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much,
Have a
everybody.
wonderful night. Nice to see you.
Great Max Love to everybody.